Federal prosecutors will pursue fewer charges as they try for a second time to convict a man accused of starting the most destructive wildfire in Los Angeles history. The second trial of Jonathan Rinderknecht is set to start in the fall. A jury deadlocked on his first trial in June. He's accused of starting the Palisades fire last year. The second double murder trial of disbarred attorney Alex Murdaugh will be moved out of his home county in South Carolina. A judge ruled on Friday that the concerns he can't get an impartial retrial are valid. She also ruled that prosecutors can introduce testimony from his first trial in which he was found guilty of murdering his wife and son. President Donald Trump is asking the U.S. Supreme Court to approve the construction of his controversial White House ballroom. The request comes after lower courts ruled Mr. Trump needs approval from Congress before the project moves forward. The president says the ballroom is needed for national security, among other things. Mystery surrounds a newly discovered treasure chest in Belgium. Construction workers found that the wooden chest, while renovating a brewery in East Flanders, dozens of gold bars and hundreds of coins were inside. The value estimated at 9 million euros, or nearly 10.5 million bucks. The owner of the property called police. Investigators are trying to figure out who owns the gold and who buried it. What a story that is. Thanks for watching the first hour of The Story Is. The next hour starts right now. I'm Elex Michaelson, live in Los Angeles. Coming up, the story is deadly earthquake in Indonesia. It is a race against the clock as rescue workers dig through the rubble. We go live to the region. The story is the USS Abraham Lincoln crew suffering major issues as President Trump says its 8-month deployment hasn't lasted long enough. Our political panel is standing by live. And the story is Luigi Mangione pleads guilty. What he said in court about killing a top healthcare insurance executive and what comes next for his case. We start with breaking news. People in south central Indonesia are trying to clean up and assess the damage after a massive earthquake struck off the coast a few hours ago. A local police chief says at least 5 people have been killed. The 7.7 magnitude quake, huge quake, happened near the island of Flores, which is home to about 2 million people. A tsunami warning issued after the quake was lifted 3 hours later. No major problems when it comes to that. CNN's Gage Goulding is in Hong Kong following this. What's the latest at this hour?
Yeah, the latest is that number that has already grown today. 5 people killed, according to local police officials there on the ground in Indonesia. And I want to note that that's according to information that's being relayed from other police substations. So they're still trying to reach all the areas that are impacted. This quake striking just off the coast of Indonesia near Flores there around 6 a.m. local time. Now the clock is ticking. We're in this golden hour period, if you will, where they need to find those that are trapped under the rubble. You can see that happening right here. That is the focus here. In that number 5 killed is just the first part of it, but there are even more that are injured. Now I want to talk about the severity of this earthquake. A 7.7 magnitude is an incredibly strong earthquake. Anything over 8 is very, very severe. The good news of this situation that it was in a relatively remote area, about 500,000 people, and that's still a lot of people potentially feeling very strong to severe shaking. That's according to the USGS, but that number compared to the earthquake that we just saw in Colombia was around 6 million people there. So 2 very dramatically different stories here, but the work is on now for search and rescue crews that have been going at it for over 6 hours now. This is one crew that's working there, working to sift through the rubble and try to find these victims still there, many of them that were still sleeping. Take a listen.
The Joint SAR team, consisting of Basarnas and other SAR personnel, has so far reported 3 casualties, 2 people injured and 1 person deceased. Meanwhile, in other regencies affected by the earthquake, we are still collecting data.
One woman telling us that this was the longest and strongest earthquake that she's felt. This area very prone to earthquakes, known in what's the Ring of Fire, they call this area of the world. It sees more than 90% of the earthquakes that Earth sees overall, Alex, but still very strong earthquake there this morning.
Yeah, of course, those of us here in Los Angeles know a thing or two about the Ring of Fire. We are part of it as well. And as we know here, and as you know there, earthquakes, not just a one-time thing. When it's a 7.7, there's aftershocks. What are we
recorded immediately after this earthquake. Some of them, I mean, incredibly strong, 5.9, 5.6, 6.1 magnitude aftershocks, which if that was the initial earthquake alone, those numbers, those strength ratings would be enough to cause concern initially. But 37 aftershocks, Alex, this is something that really had people kind of running to high ground because of the tsunami warning, the threat. The good news there, other coastal nations did not issue warnings. The water only rising about 4 feet, just under.
Since a 7.4 magnitude quake in Colombia. Now that country's president is vowing to rebuild the nation's western region. This is pretty amazing. Rescue teams found a man alive in the rubble of a collapsed hotel on Friday, giving hope that more survivors may be found, may be buried under the rubble. Remember, the quake hit early Monday morning. The guy found Friday. Its epicenter was in the Choco province. As of Friday, officials say 287 people died, and 400 more are missing and thousands are injured. Meanwhile, Hawaii is preparing for a rare potential hurricane strike this weekend as tropical storm Lala moves closer to the Big Island. The system is picking up strength as it moves closer. Lala expected to hit hurricane status before reaching the Big Island on Saturday, bringing as much as 2 feet of rain and storm surge of nearly 3 feet. Hurricanes have made landfall on Hawaiian Islands only a handful of times since record keeping began. Last hour, I spoke live with Molly Peters, who's a public information officer in the Oahu Emergency Department, about what has officials there most concerned.
Our big concern, though, really for this one is the wind. And we have a lot of vulnerable infrastructure. Our power lines are mostly above ground. And we have a lot of big, beautiful tropical trees that, unfortunately, with these strong winds do come down. So we're really asking folks to prepare for prolonged power outages after this storm, which we think could likely be our primary impact on Oahu.
If you spend any time living in Chicago, you know this guy. Tom Skilling is a legendary retired meteorologist from WGN-TV who happens to be on the Big Island right now. Thanks so much for being with us.
Something? Well, Alex, it's a pleasure. You know something, we weather people are cut from a different piece of cloth. We're fascinated at watching nature do things that nature tends not to do very often. And this hurricane, soon to be a hurricane from all indications, is a good example. You know, it's been interesting. I'm here on the Big Island, which is the southernmost of the Hawaiian Islands. The report you just had was from Oahu. That's up in Honolulu, about 130 miles northwest of here. There's a tropical storm watch in effect there. But down here, we're under a hurricane warning, and it appears the Big Island may be ground zero for some of the major effects of this storm. I was just looking at satellite imagery, and toward the end of the day, you can see these, what we call hot towers. They're convective clouds that bubble up inside the hurricane. They're a sign there are tremendous vertical motions going, and it's often a proxy indicator the storm is strengthening. And I was looking at some infrared cloud top temperatures. It looks like this system is trying to develop a closed eye wall, which would be the first time that's happened. Yet another indication that the storm may be starting to intensify, and it's been looking more and more impressive on satellite imagery. So what we got is a system that may clip the far south end of the Big Island, the center of it. But officials and meteorologists here are warning that don't look at the path of it. The effects will be island-wide and, in fact, extend to other areas of the Hawaiian Islands as well. We may be talking about 8 to 12 inches of rain, particularly on the east and south sides of the Big Island, and up to 25 inches in favored area. Terrain has a lot to say about where the heaviest rains occur, and that wind sweeping off the Pacific with all the waves that slam into the East Coast. Upslopes on the mountains. We have two 13,000-foot plus volcanoes on this island, Mauna Kea and Mauna Loa. And as that air upslopes, it cools and it maximizes rainfall on the front slopes of those islands. Now, what's interesting is it downslopes, it tends to dry out some, but we still expect on the dry west side of the island, where a lot of the resorts are, substantial wind and rain in that area as well. So it's one for the books around here.
You're
Only
such a pro.
Landfalling Hawaiian hurricanes, at least since 1950.
You're such
and
a
that's
pro.
pretty
That was
interesting. You would think of this latitude there'd be more.
You're such a pro. That was your answer to hello. So thanks so much. You're
I'm
there.
always kidding my colleagues out in Chicago. I'm a bad one for sound bites. I'll tell you that.
I love it. It's great. So you're there. Obviously, you see tourists there, residents there. How are people preparing?
Yes.
What's the vibe? What are people saying? And are people genuinely concerned?
Oh, there is great concern. A friend of mine got me into a web meeting of all of the Hawaiian folks who are preparing for this storm. This would include government officials, law enforcement folks, resort operators, and Hawaiian Electric had an official there. They're very concerned about this because, we've had in this year some experience with extreme rain events. Remember the $1 billion of damage that was done up in Oahu by the Kona lows back in March. Yeah. And we had a big rain in April as well, right on the back side of that. So here we are now in August, and we've got what looks to be a rare hurricane that may make landfall on the Big Island.
Well, we wish you and everybody there well, and what a treat to have you break down the meteorology for us. Tom Skilling, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ellie. What a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks a lot.
Let's talk politics now.
Pretty soon I'll be declaring the Hormuz Strait a territory of the United States. Essentially, that's what it is. We have the blockade. No ships get through unless we want them to.
President Trump drops a bombshell about the future of the Strait of Hormuz. It's unclear how he would make an international waterway between Iran and Oman a U.S. territory, but Tehran was quick to react, saying the strait cannot be seized by a tweet, an aircraft carrier, or a campaign speech. President Trump also seems to be out of step with the new White House messaging on Iran. The White House said Friday that keeping gas prices low is just as important as ending Tehran's nuclear program. Then a couple hours later, the president said it's worth it to pay more for gas, even if it prevents Iran from getting nuclear weapons. He also said this, which is getting even more attention.
Family members of U.S. service members are concerned about the conditions on board the USS Lincoln.
Well, no, that ship is moving. No, they're not. That ship is moving right now, or very shortly, and it's being replaced with another very similar ship.
Has the deployment's gone on too long?
No. Not nearly long enough.
President Trump dismissing concerns about conditions on the USS Abraham Lincoln, which is deployed near Iran. There have been multiple reports of crew members trying to jump or going overboard amid horrid living conditions on the ship. The carrier has been deployed for more than 250 days. We're now learning that a crew member of another supporting vessel went overboard in April. He was later rescued. It's unclear if he intentionally jumped or not. Let's get into that and more with our political panel. Melanie Mason is Politico's California bureau chief, our returning champion, a co-author of California Politico's Playbook newsletter, and Mark Edelman here for the first time, a media consultant and the founder of Edelmania Consulting. Melanie, welcome back. Mark, welcome to The Story Is for the first time on a political panel on CNN.
It's history. I hope everybody is watching it at home and will tell their children about this. Thank you for having me.
It is a big moment. So for that, let's start with you. And how do you see the politics of the president's comments about the ship?
Where the hell is this guy's empathy? I just cannot. I mean, this is so not a political Democratic Republican thing. This is servicemen and women that are living on a ship that hasn't seen land, I think, since December of 2025. And this sort of dereliction of sensitivity and kindness, and it doesn't play well politically, to say the least, but it's just where's the humanity?
And we know, Melanie, that the military is so much of his base too.
Right, but the president cannot acknowledge that there might be adverse consequences to the war that he started, right? And so whether it is...
Well, he could. He chooses not to.
Well, yes, I think that his personality makes it very difficult for him to do that. And so whether it is this story or the fact that he seems to be unconcerned about gas prices going up, which is going to be tailor-made for advertisements for the fall, I just think that his inability to acknowledge that there may have been some consequences are why you're not seeing him talk with empathy, with concern for these service members.
And it puts Republicans running in the midterms in a box, right?
Well, I mean, as you said, a lot of his base is in the military. Those tend to be Republican voters. But, that is just a line that politicians do not cross, right? You are supposed to talk about how much we respect, how much we honor, how much we value the military. And the fact that he seems dismissive of it, of course that's going to alienate voters, and Republicans are going to have to answer for that.
And it is challenging for a lot of Republicans running for Senate right now. And it's really kind of shocking if you look at recent polls that a lot of Democrats running in red states are doing well. In fact, in the lead in some of these Senate races. Here's what Harry Enton said earlier about what's happening in the South.
Look at this. John Ossoff up by 13 points. How about Roy Cooper, the former governor, up 9 points? And then James Tallarico holding on to that lead in the great state of Texas.
So those are all states that President Trump won in 2024 that could soon have Democratic members of the Senate. Obviously, Ossoff already an incumbent in Georgia. Tallarico in Texas is sort of the white whale for Democrats. They've been going after this state over and over again. He's got a new ad about Ken Paxton, who apparently went into a courthouse and stole a pen. And at the end, you hear the guy whose pen was stolen. Watch this.
Paxton walked up to the trays next to the metal detectors, rummaged through them, and came across someone else's expensive Mont Blanc pen. He decided to take it for himself. Joe's a nice guy. He'd never take someone else's pen. But he also hasn't forgotten who took his.
Hi, I'm Joe Joplin, and I endorse James Tallarico for the United States Senate.
Vote for James Tallarico. He won't steal your pen.
So they have merch now with the pens. They've got a whole thing about this. I mean, what do you make of the serious point of this, the strategy behind this?
Well, look, I mean, first of all, hey, Joe, what a great sport. Look, I don't understand. Ken Paxton, I mean, the pen is probably the smallest thing he has stolen from the residents of Texas over his tenure. But really, he's like Wile E. Coyote in Looney Tunes. I mean, it's like everything he's done is tailor-made for these kinds of commercials. And I think, especially right now where the country is hurting, people don't feel good about their futures. And you look at this guy and you look at what he's done. He was impeached by the Republican House in Texas.
And his wife's not a huge fan.
I don't want to get into the marriage, but it's not great. It's not ideal, as we like to say.
That being said, Texas is a Republican state. It has been a Republican state for a long time. He's got the endorsement of President Trump. And it seems like there is this effort on the right to try to make James Tallarico out as somebody who's not a real manly Texan and doesn't really understand Texas values.
Yeah, there's a lot of subtext in the ads that we're seeing. And I think that the real question is, like, what is the current sort of nature of Texas and Texans? And so I do think that there is this conversation about masculinity that sort of maybe taps into what the old school sort of cowboy mentality. But we all know that Texas has been changing. It's been changing demographically. Democrats have been hoping for such a long time that it will change politically. And it might be, as you said, the white whale. It is a very expensive state to run in, but I think that James Tallarico is going to try to sort of redefine what it looks like to be a Texan.
So Democrats right now competitive in places that they don't typically competitive in. Texas, we just talked about North Carolina, Iowa, Ohio, and Alaska. And in Alaska, there's quite a headline in the New York Times. Let's put this up from Mary Peltola. Senate hopeful in Alaska says, no thanks to Kamala Harris's support. So there was a group backing her that Kamala Harris said, we back her. And they said, Mary isn't seeking endorsements from anyone from the lower 48. Her focus is and always will be Alaska. Ouch, huh?
Well, look.
What's the backstory here?
In part, this is what happens when you are a national Democratic figure. I mean, how many times have Democrats, when Nancy Pelosi was Speaker, would they run against Nancy Pelosi, right? I mean, there is this idea of running against your party leadership. But this also seems like such an own goal by Kamala Harris and her team. I mean, sending out this fundraising missive to help Mary Peltola without maybe checking with them first if this is something that they would be interested in. That's how you get headlines like the New York Times. It was totally unnecessary. I think that the vice president can handle the distance, and in fact, it makes sense for a red state like Alaska, but I do think that it's a little bit of a sloppy campaign or advance work.
And what does that say about Kamala Harris's appeal?
Well, look, Alaska, the last final frontier, I think, is talk about all politics is local.